The following procedure gives an overview of a certain range of situations. However, due to the variety of possible conditions, it is not possible to have a procedure that satisfies all the situations perfectly. In such cases, the crew should use judgment and discernment to carry out actions that bypass difficulties not foreseen in the procedure. An evacuation can be classified as planned or unplanned evacuation. A planned evacuation allows the crew to revise the procedures and to prepare the passengers during flight. An unplanned evacuation occurs suddenly, with almost no time for briefing. If the evacuation will be planned, as in a landing with the landing gears partially lowered, the planning, the communication, the speed, and the application of the procedures are essential for the success of the operation. The pilot must contact the tower through radio to inform the nature of the emergency. That information must include the type of the aircraft and its position, the course, speed, altitude, time, and intended place for landing. The transponder must be set to 7700, and the course to the landing place, either on the ground or at sea, must be informed. The pilot must inform the emergency condition to cabin crew through the PA and in the cockpit to order the flight attendant to prepare passengers for the emergency. They must also inform the emergency type, the available time to prepare for landing, the landing conditions such as if landing gear up or ditching will be carried out, the existence of dangerous goods, and a possible center of gravity change. If the PA system fails, appropriate signs must be combined between the cockpit crews and cabin. The specific procedures for ditching or forced landing can be found in the QRH. The pilots must inform the cabin crew through the PA about the imminence of the landing about 2 minutes before the impact. Seconds before the impact, other warning must be given to the flight attendant to order the passengers to assume the definitive impact position. After the complete stop of the aircraft, the captain must apply the parking brakes and depressurize the cabin. The captain must pull the fire extinguishing handles. To stop the APU, press the APU stop button. If necessary, discharge the engine and APU fire extinguishing bottles and turn off the electric fuel pumps. At this moment, the pilots must notify the cabin crew members to turn on the emergency lights, and the evacuation must be initiated. The non-flight pilot must notify the tower. After fire extinguishing agents discharge, in case of the fire alarm persistence, the fire must be visually confirmed by the crew or confirmed by requesting ground personnel's help. The cockpit crew members must identify which engine stays in fire. The associated exit door must not be used. Before leaving the airplane, the captain must turn off the batteries, and from this moment, the alarm system and the PA will be off. Before completing the QRH procedures, the captain and the first officer must put on the life jacket if the landing will be executed on water. The captain should go to the passenger cabin to assure the complete evacuation of the aircraft and to supervise the after-evacuation tasks. The passenger's reaction at the moment of the evacuation can be unpredictable. Some passengers can represent potential problems. In spite of all the cabin preparation, where the flight attendants have the primordial function to maintain passengers calm, situations can happen that passengers simply stay frozen in shock. Others stay extremely cooperative during the evacuation, or even the opposite, passengers that simply run over the other passengers to leave the aircraft before all the others. The flight attendant's leadership is decisive for the success of the evacuation. The lack of leadership on the part of the person responsible for the cabin can leave the gap for someone else to take over. This person may make wrong decisions and risk the lives of other passengers. After receiving from the captain the communication about the nature and conditions of the emergency, the flight attendant should check the procedures on the emergency checklist. All the lights of the cabin have to be turned on, and all the passengers must be awake for the emergency speech. During the speech, the flight attendant must inform the passengers, through the passenger address system, of all procedures regarding the emergency and how to use the exits. The flight attendant must verify if all the emergency exits are cleared and if the emergency equipment is properly located. All loose objects in the flight deck and passenger cabin must be picked up in a plastic bag and disposed of into the toilet. That is also applicable to objects that can come off the bins. The flight attendant must also pick up all board surface, lock the galley, turn off all galley switches, remove the curtain, and lock the toilet doors. Physically capable passengers must be selected to stay close to the emergency exits. Those passengers must be physically capable and well briefed on how to correctly open the emergency exits, to inspect the conditions outside the aircraft, and to follow the crew's orders. Other passengers should be assigned to aid unaccompanied kids, handicapped and senior passengers. If possible, accommodate relatives together. Blankets, pillows, clothes, and cushion seats must be provided to protect pregnant women, small children, and infants from the impact. Infants must never be buckled up while sitting on their parents' laps. Once the cabin is ready, the flight attendant must go to the seat and fasten the seat belts, and then report to the cockpit crew. The flight attendant must wait for the sign of the impact position given by the captain. And immediately after the impact warning, the flight attendant must repeat the word impact aloud several times. During landing, more than one impact can occur. The flight attendant must wait until the aircraft comes to a halt and the engines are shut down. When unbuckling the safety belts, the flight attendant must immediately turn on the emergency lights and wait 30 seconds for the evacuation order. Command the evacuation when the conventional sign is given from the flight deck. After 30 seconds after total aircraft stop, go to cockpit to check if the pilots are okay. If not, the evacuation must be commanded. There is evidence of fire or smoke, either inside or outside the cabin, ditching, structural damage as big as fuselage deformation, and big torsions. This situation is also called evident evacuation. The flight attendant must verify the area close to the door, opening a little, or looking through a window nearby. If there is fire or any other event that disables the use of that exit, the exit must be blocked and the evacuation flow must be redirected. Use the pre-established phraseology. The use of the word fire can disseminate panic among the passengers. Keep the exit cleared and effective, and then begin the evacuation. Frequently verify if the adjacent area stays cleared and if the evacuation is flowing appropriately. Verify the correct operation of the stairway. The passengers must be removed from the aircraft, and they can never return to the aircraft except if accompanied by the firemen or competent people to evaluate the situation. If the flight attendant's door is congested, she must order the last passengers to an exit less congested. When the passengers' flow ends, cabin verification can be made to discover if there is still someone left inside the plane, if there is fallen people among or under the seats, and fallen people in the corridor. In case of unconscious passengers, drag the passenger to the nearest door, following the appropriate technique. When the cabin is totally empty, perform the abandon check of the aircraft. During ditching, all the previous procedures are applied, but those procedures must be added to the following. When choosing which passengers will help in the evacuation, Give preference to good swimmers as assistants. Instruct the passengers to take the flotation cushion seats when they leave the aircraft. If the aircraft is equipped with life jackets, instruct the passengers about the correct use of the life jackets and certify that the passengers have put it on correctly. Inform the passengers how to open the exits and to use only the exits that are above the water level. Ask the passengers to put on the maximum number of clothes to maintain the body temperature inside the water. Quench your thirst with fresh water, mainly if the landing occurs in salt water. The flight attendant must put on the life jacket before declaring cabin OK to the technical crew. Inflate the life jacket only after leaving the aircraft. Do not forget the survival kit when leaving the aircraft. Unplanned evacuations happen suddenly, without enough time for passengers and cabin preparation. Unfortunately, statistics have shown that unplanned evacuations occur mostly after emergencies, during an unsuccessful landing, or during an aborted takeoff. The unplanned evacuations are far more common than planned evacuations. The following procedures are general in nature. It means that they can be applied in most of the emergencies. Facing special conditions, the crew must use their knowledge to quickly revert situations that were not foreseen in the procedure. When a sudden emergency happens, if the captain doesn't have a doubt about the need for evacuation, the beginning of the evacuation must be commanded, besides following the pertinent procedures to this specific emergency situation. Once the minimum procedures have been completed, the captain and first officer must also evacuate the cabin and assist the passengers in the evacuation. The flight attendants must perform the procedures as memory items to make a fast evacuation with summarized tasks. Standard phraseology must be applied only in the key situations. The flight attendant must, immediately after receiving the evacuation warning and after the aircraft stops, announce to the passengers that they should release the seat belts. Then, the flight attendant must verify if the nearest door is clear to be used and the external conditions are safe for evacuation. After that, announce to the passengers that they should run to the immediate evacuation exit. If the conditions allow, the flight attendant must open the door and stay close to it, informing the passengers that they should abandon the aircraft through the exit door. Once the evacuation flow has finished, the flight attendant must certify that all passengers have abandoned the aircraft. A good understanding of the emergency evacuation leads to a simple conclusion, although vital. Evacuations are potentially dangerous events, constantly complicated by the environmental and structural factors, communication and deficiency coordination, anomalous behaviors, and deficiencies in the procedures. Even the planned evacuations, with the whole available time and necessary care, can lead to a catastrophic event. Even with technology working to lessen those effects, an important factor should be faced as primordial to reduce to minimum wounds and life losses: training and coordination. Consistent procedures, particularly written in operation and airline safety manuals, and the cabin crew training together with cockpit crews, all the attention and guarantee must be applied to maintain air transport as one of the safest in the world.